So today is a very exciting day. We finally got the Diff arrived from the Castlemaine rod shop. So this thing took about 12 weeks to arrive, but I think definitely well worth the wait. I think bang for buck, you can't really compare with this Diff from Castlemaine rod shop. So you got wheelwood brakes all around, 31 spline axles, true track center, 3.5 gears, and the thing's rated I think to around 800 to 850 horsepower. So yeah, plenty enough there for my application. So yeah, today we're gonna fit this in, and I've got the McDonald's Brothers Racing 4-link kit. So yeah, we'll basically fit this 4-link in with the Diff and she'll be a rolling chassis again. So first thing, I need to fit this engine and transmission back into the chassis. So that is gonna give me my pinion angle of the Diff. So once the transmission's in, you need to basically get the angle of this output shaft of the transmission, and that's got to be the same as the pinion of the Diff. So you want this angle to line up with the output shaft of the transmission. So very important to get that angle right, and that is basically going to keep your uni joints from flogging out. So it's going to keep it all nice and square, so the unis are doing less work than they need to. I've just tightened up all the bolts as well. So the next job will be to get the Diff into position. So I'm going to jack up the Diff up against the bump stops. So I've just installed the bump stops here, and I'll probably put a spacer in between as well. So I've just got the Diff supported with the engine crane. I've just slung it up with some slings, and I've got a bottle jack supporting the pinion to be able to adjust that pinion angle. I've also just got the spacing on the Diff, so bottom of the bump stop to the top of the Diff. So I've just used, that's a 50 millimeter RHS section. So that is actually just cut off from this cross member that McDonald's Brothers Racing have supplied. So it's plenty long enough. So I've just cut a couple of sections off either end, just to use as spacers to space that out. So yeah, with the pinion angle, I've also got this digital level box. So it's got a magnet on the bottom end, and what you can do is you can put it on the end of the pinion there, and that'll basically get your angle. So that is 84.3, and then what you can do is put it on the Diff here, up against there. So you can see that is 84.3, so perfect. So the Diff is now in position, and I've triple checked all measurements. So I've just made sure, measure this gap here between the outside of the chassis to the inside of the disc, make sure that's even on both sides. Also measured from this cross member to the inside of the Diff tubing on both sides, and also the pinion angle. So just triple checked all their measurements, and it's pretty much spot on now. So the next step will be to weld the bracketry onto the Diff. So obviously I can't slip these brackets over the tube ends because it's all been welded up. So what I'm going to have to do is cut these in half and then weld them onto the Diff tube once I've cut them in half. So I've just got the brackets cut in half, and I've just repositioned them back over the tube. So what I will do is tack them all both sides, and I'll get them all sitting on the Diff, and then I can still move them around and position them. I won't actually weld it to the Diff at this point. I'll get them all tacked so I can move and reposition. So then brackets are welded together, and I can still move them freely like so. So just one thing to note is this bracket goes on the outside. This one here has got these extra holes at the back where the coilovers mount to. So just make sure that this one goes on the inside. Another thing to note is when I was grinding this and welding these together, pretty much bump the diff and yeah, got it out of position, so I'm gonna have to line it all up again. So what I do recommend is to take this paint off and weld these together before you get it all into position. So you can get it roughly into position, but yeah, do all that first before you take all the final, you know, measurements and get it spot on. So I think what I'll do now is install these 4 links onto the brackets on the diff. What I have done is got all these the same length, so I've measured them all out and adjusted these rod ends to all be the same length. So what I've done is also wound these out a little bit just so that there's enough adjustment on each end, so that way I can fine tune the 4 link with the adjustment. You don't want to bottom these out and then run out of adjustment. So all the links are sitting in loosely just on both sides. So as you can see, this will sit about there. So this bracket is going to have to come off because it's in the way. So I'll grind that bracket off. I'll take all this paint off and then I can cut the cross member to size, get that sitting in there roughly, can fit this onto the cross member and then get everything lined up and then start tacking away. Okay, so I've just got the rear cross member sitting in place. I've just squared it all up, just using this straight edge along the chassis there, and then just measured from here to here and then squared that up either side. And then also I've just used this cross member and then measured from there to there just to square that up either side as well. So I'll tack it in both sides. I'll just use 2 tacks just to hold it in for now. I've just got the links sitting on the front cross member there, so all looks pretty good so far. So what I'll do now is I'll square all this up and tack these brackets in either side, and then what I'll do is I'll get the pinion angle right so I can spin the diff, get everything all squared up, and then I can finally tack in the brackets onto the diff. Okay, so it is day 2 of fitting the 4 link in. So last night I finished tacking everything in, so all these brackets are tacked in onto the diff. So I've worked the engine crane, goes up and down nice and smooth, so pretty happy with how it's turned out so far. The pinion angle, that stays the same, going up and down, and the bottom link is pretty much parallel with the chassis, so that is ideal. So you want the bottom link to be as parallel as possible as you can. So the next step will be to start mounting the coilovers. So yeah, this bracket here, that holds the bottom of the coilover, and then there's a cross member that goes in here for the top part of the coilover. So yeah, we'll start fitting that in. Okay, so hopefully you can hear me with all this rain. It's pissing down at the moment, but I've just bolted these brackets onto this piece here. So there's 2 brackets, they sandwich onto this plate here and then bolt in, and then the coilover mounts to these brackets. So got them sitting in on both sides, and I've roughly put this cross member in as well, and I've just got these brackets here, so they will basically sit in there like that, and then your coilover will bolt into the top. So I'll get all that sitting in, and then I can start tacking this piece in as well. So this cross member is tacked in now, and I've also just tacked in these brackets for the top of the coilover. So everything is pretty much tacked in place now, and the only thing left to do now is tack in this panhard rod. So the panhard rod stops any sideways movement, so stops the diff from moving this way and that way. So it welds onto the chassis and then onto the diff. Okay, so that is everything tacked in. So got the panhard tacked in as well. So just got these brackets tacked in onto the chassis. So you can just see that they're actually tacked in on a bit of an angle like so. And then on the other end, just got this bracket here that I've tacked onto the diff tubing. So you can see it is bloody close, that hitting. This is all the way up, so right at the end of the travel, and it's only just clearing. So once it drops down, that gap opens up a lot more. But what I might do, just to be safe and allow for a bit of movement, I might just put a spacer in between here, just to bring this out slightly, just to allow a little bit more clearance there. It should be fine, but yeah, I just think maybe if it does over time get a little bit of wear or moves a bit, it's yeah, it might start rubbing, so I don't want that. Okay, so that is everything all welded in. Should be nice and strong now. So I ended up pulling the diff out just so I could access these brackets and weld all them in. So just would have been too awkward to try and weld them all in while they were in the car. So yeah, I can put it all back together, adjust it up, and then she's done. So that is pretty much all completed. I've just put the coilovers in there, so they look pretty cool. I've just tightened up all the bolts and roughly adjusted everything. So I'm not sure whether I'll pull this apart again to spray paint it all, or whether I might just brush it on with the KBS. I would have to have a think about that one. But yeah, for now it's all done. So pretty happy with how it's all turned out. All seems pretty square. Still need to put it on the ground and check all the ride height and everything. But yeah, it looks like there will be plenty of adjustment for the ride height anyway. So yeah, we'll leave it with that. Took probably 2 full days to get that done. Probably 10-12 hours each day. So pretty keen for a beer. It was a big job. Glad to have that finally finished. So I'm really stoked with the diff from the Castlemaine Rod Shop and the 4-link from McDonalds Brothers Racing. Highly recommend them products, awesome bits of gear. So I'll leave a link in the description for both their websites. Also, if you want to follow this 1 ton of build, I'll put a card up in this corner here. So check out that playlist. So it's the very first video all the way to the latest video. So have a binge on that. So that's it for today's video. So if you did get something out of that, hit that like and subscribe button below. I'm coming up to 1,000 subscribers, so I'm about 50 off. So I really appreciate the support. If you could hit that subscribe button and help me reach that milestone of 1,000 subscribers. So yeah, we'll leave it with that, and we'll see you next time on Shenke Garage. Cheers.